Hello, this is Yarrow. Welcome to an episode of my podcast. Thank you so much for listening. It's the end of the week. I hope you've had a great week. Quite a busy week for me. It's really flown by. Lots of things going on with my agency. We've had a couple of clients sign up this week, which is fantastic. Some new initiatives with new team members being trained on sales calls. We're looking to do some more cold outreach. Got some ads up and running again. So lots of little things spinning around there. But I actually want to talk about a completely different issue around creativity with new projects and in particular, getting feedback. So I have a side project I'm working on where I'm continuing to experiment with, in particular, voice powered AI and creating content with your voice basically, or using AI to replicate your voice to create content. And it's a very creative thing for me to do because I'm learning about what the AI tools can do and using it in a way to create something that I'm really excited to release to the world, but also unsure if people will want it because of the AI aspect. I listen to what I'm creating and I find it really enjoyable. So I'm pretty confident other people will too, but I've yet to get any, real feedback because I haven't shared what I'm doing with the greater world. What I have started to do though is share what I have with some friends, some contacts, and it's interesting to get feedback. I'm sure you've done this before with your brand new projects too, and I've had to remind myself that whenever you share your work with friends and family and anyone, just to get some kind of initial attention to what you're creating, you have to watch out because you're almost always sharing with people who are not the target market, not interested in the topics or subjects or the service or product that you're actually selling. So the feedback really is not relevant. It's helpful in the sense that they might spot problems that are just generic sort of general issues they're having with it. But in terms of a real data point for whether this thing is going to work, you really shouldn't consider that kind of feedback worthwhile. In fact, sometimes it can be misleading because they may question things that are not actually that important to what's the general target audience would actually question. And they might have problems that are not really problems because they're just not the target market or just not interested. So while we are certainly encouraged to get some kind of feedback, like I know getting anyone to hear something that you've created or watch something you've created or experience something you're planning on selling, getting that some kind of touch to what you're doing gives you motivation to keep going. You want that human interaction, but you have to be careful. It may not be the most productive form of feedback. It can even be potentially negative, and you don't want that negativity killing your motivation to keep going. So if that's the case, then what is the kind of feedback we should be looking for? And honestly, in all the projects I've ever had, the best feedback has always been just good old raw numbers. Now, sometimes intangible, more qualitative feedback, like people saying nice things, is helpful because it helps with your motivation and gives you an indication you're heading in the right direction. But really, the most important thing are actions people take to show you something is appealing to them. So if it's something creative that's like putting out into the world, maybe a YouTube channel, maybe a podcast, maybe writing, then obviously the downloads, the views, the engagement with the content is a key criteria. And then you can have secondary factors like, are you asking for some form of subscription, whether it's YouTube subscription, podcast subscription, or my favorite, email subscription, to then give you another number to show whether something is working. So that's actually what I'm looking at as the key criteria to assess whether something is working, is as I start releasing this new project into the world, am I getting people to join the email list? And is there some form of consumption of this content? I will certainly value feedback, whether someone emails me back something and tells me it's great or not great, or gives me some feedback, some changes. But you have to be careful because often the voices that come in through those channels are a minority of people that don't represent the people that actually matter if it's going to be a business. Now, I should clarify too, this is if you are planning on turning what you're doing into some kind of business. There has to be a goal about building an audience and making money from selling something, or maybe you're going to use advertising if it is a pure content business. So you want to look at those numbers as being far more important than someone emailing you and saying, "Oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever experienced," or "This is terrible. You should stop doing it." Either end of the spectrum or all the way in between those two. And now I do love when someone emails in something like, "I noticed you have a mistake here," and great, you can fix that mistake. But it's like, at the end of the day, that's probably could be seen purely as an indication that they paid attention to what you're doing, and that's a good thing. So attention is always a good thing, even if it's to report things that are not necessarily good. But I will definitely not look at that kind of criteria as much as I will those conversion elements, the subscriptions, of course, eventually buying products and services as well. And that's actually makes things a lot harder than you realize, because something that happens when you start releasing a project, you'll get these bursts where suddenly some people will pay attention to you. Like you'll have some kind of channel where you can push it out. Maybe it'll be to friends and family, maybe it'll be a post to your social media, maybe you'll send it to your email list if you happen to have one. Maybe you have another content asset, a website, a blog, something like that, where you can share what you're doing. And you'll get this little burst of interaction and feedback, and it might be great or not so great. It really doesn't matter. What actually happens there is you're getting this kind of segmented form of attention from an audience that's probably got an inherent bias because they're already aware of you. They may or may not be the right target audience. So it's not necessarily the most useful form of feedback. It does matter. It can give you an engagement metric that will help, get maybe some feedback as well. But ultimately, what you're looking for are these signs of life through either organic means of distribution or obviously paid means of distribution. Obviously, if you're running paid advertising, you need to see the numbers moving forward and customers signing up. You can't do paid advertising for too long without it actually working. Organic, it's a little different. It's a little slower. You're trying to build content assets. You're trying to build, whether it's content for Google, content for AI search, content for a social media channel, a YouTube channel. All these things take a bit of time. So, your metrics are really like, let's produce first and then start to see the machine move forward, start to get some views, start to get some visits, start to get some email opt-ins. And that's a little slower, but you should start to see a general trend in the right direction. What's hardest is that very first phase, because you produce and you release and nothing happens. You have to believe that what you've got will start to garner an audience. And for projects, that can be from a week to 10 years. You don't know when it might happen. Will you stick around for 10 years? Probably not. But you want to be there for months, possibly even years, especially when you're doing organic strategies. Like if you're starting a new YouTube channel or a new social media marketing campaign, or even an SEO or AI search campaign, as much as it's nice to think about quick results, it's not going to happen very likely. AI search, maybe you can start to get some quick results today, but most of the time there's a slow burn process where you're building up assets, building up exposure points, building up content, and that just simply takes time. So you have to make sure there's some kind of machine, or you as an individual who's motivated to keep doing it. Otherwise, you're going to quickly stop. And stopping is the thing that kills most businesses. This is an important point I'll end on. Feedback is something that will encourage motivation, and it's the motivation that ultimately will typically decide whether a business works or not, especially during the early days. Or I should say the lack of motivation is what will kill businesses. That's why you have to be careful when you do get feedback from sources that aren't necessarily accurate sources for what you're trying to do, because it might be negative feedback that kills the motivation. And then you're like, well, these few people who've told me that these things are probably indicative of how the entire world's going to think about what I'm doing. I better stop. And then your project's over. Now, where that point is for you, like how long you keep going with something without getting the feedback you need, is ultimately a personal decision. It's a resources decision. It's an opportunity cost decision. But you have to put in some level of effort to ask the question if this is going to work. And that to me that's the magic. Are you excited enough to keep working on something when no one is paying attention? If you are, that's a good sign, because that means you're going to stay motivated for long enough to at least give it a chance to succeed. That's what you're looking for. While I don't believe you should choose to start or grow businesses purely because you're excited or passionate about a topic, it really helps for the motivating factor. And the motivating factor is ultimately the deciding factor of whether you give it enough of a go to have a potential success, and then look for all those metrics that do matter to decide whether something is working. Okay, that's it for me. My name is Yarrow. If you want more help with growing your business, you can head to insidegrowth.com/framework to opt in and get my guide, my growth guide, 5 phases to grow your online business from $10,000 to $100,000 per month. I take you through everything I teach on how to grow a business and how I've done it in the last decade. That's insidegrowth.com/framework. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you again soon. This is Yarrow. Bye bye.